All right, good evening. Welcome to the December 5th meeting of the Goffstown Budget Committee. We're going to get started with the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so we're going to do a roll call for the record, so members only. So we're going to start with Samantha.
Samantha Kine.
Brian Mazer.
Bridget Fletcher, Goffstown Village Water Precinct.
Go ahead.
Lauren Dukas.
Jared Talbot, School Board Rep.
Joe Alexander.
Frank Hobbs.
Melanie Renfrew Hebert, member.
Laura Stevens.
Olivia Welcher et al.
Peter Georgiantis, Selectmen's Rep.
Richard Manzo.
Allison DeCesare.
Okay, and we have Danielle Besora here and Scott Gross here as staff support. So the first thing on our agenda is the approval of minutes. So we sent these out via email. We tabled it from the last meeting. I'm hoping we can knock these out. So is there a motion on these are joint meetings with the school board, the first two. Go ahead, Laura.
I believe Danielle said there were a couple changes. I don't know if those are, you can note them.
Yes, I have the updated. I think there were final finishing touches made today to the November 7th and November 16th.
From the items that were emailed out, only two sets of minutes changed, November 7th and November 16th. Printed copies are there, and it, for the most part, was title changes. We usually, state the chair before we list the names, member, things like that. There was one change to one section where there was a misstated number, where the minute taker had a different number than was stated on the record. And then there was one other change to the vote count at the end of the meeting of the 7th, because we discovered that the tally didn't match the attendance record, so we double-checked the video and made sure to capture that. Very similar changes on the November 16th, minor changes for capturing the titles and making sure that everything was in the official final version.
Thank you.
I'm happy to put those off if the committee doesn't want to approve those today, but we'll start with the October 2nd one. Is there a motion on those?
I motion to approve the October 2nd minutes.
Okay, motion by Sam. Is there a second?
I'll say.
Second by Laura. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? We're unanimous. All right, the October 4th meeting minutes.
I motion to approve the October 4th meeting minutes.
Motion by Sam. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Brian. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand.
Mr. Chair?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Lauren.
I'm sorry.
Lauren.
I had just made note and had communicated this to the minute taker that my time and attendance on October 4th did not look correct. Said that I had arrived at 6:45 and I was at 6:05, and I know that's like a difference, and I know these are the school board meeting minutes, so it was a little different, but I just wanted to make sure that my time on there was correct for the important presentation that was there. I just wanted it noted I wasn't 45 minutes late.
Okay. Would you like to
I will amend my motion.
approve as amended?
Yes.
Okay. Second?
Yep.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Richard Manzo abstains. The rest, it's unanimous. November 2nd meeting. It was the school budget.
I motion to approve the November 2nd meeting minutes.
Motion by Samantha to approve, second by Melanie. Any discussion?
Just because I haven't read the changes, I will be voting present for this.
Well, the November 2nd
the
ones aren't the
second or
ones we're
seventh?
talking about. We're
Second.
talking about the 7th and the
Thank you.
16th. All right, any other discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Abstentions?
Abstain.
Brian Mazer abstains. The rest vote in the affirmative. I will hold off.
Which date was that?
The 2nd. So I'll hold off on the 7th and the 16th, give the committee time to review those. Those changes will be emailed to us, right, Danielle? Yep. And there's copies here too. Okay, so the first thing I want to do on new business, so we have 3 different budgets. Hopefully, my goal is to move these to public hearing. So to talk a little bit more about our schedule for the rest of the year, we have the meeting tonight, where my goal is to move the Grassmere Village Water Precinct and Goffstown Village Water Precinct to public hearing. And then we also have school budget deliberations. My goal is to also move the school budget to public hearing. So the public hearing is scheduled for January 9th with the snow date of the 11th. Nope, the 13th, right? Saturday morning?
11.
The 11th, got it. So with the snow date of the 11th. So the only other meeting we have scheduled after this is the December 19th, Tuesday, December 19th, where hopefully we will send the town budget to public hearing. The only reason we aren't doing that is because we're waiting on a couple collective bargaining agreements. But, you know, we have time. We have another meeting scheduled if we need it. So with that, the only other thing I want to say, just take up a moment of personal privilege, is there was a question about Robert's Rules of Order at one of the last meetings. I emailed the clerk of the New Hampshire House, and just to put in context, the New Hampshire House goes by Mason's rules, but he also has a copy of Robert's Rules, and I consider him pretty good with parliamentary procedure. So I asked him, and he said the relevant language for Robert's Rules is, quote, "In committees, the chairman not only has the right to make and debate motions, but he is usually the most active participant in discussions and work of the committee." So it's not my plan to make any motions today, but I just want to put it that I am allowed to if needed. So with that, I'm going to let the Grassmere Village Water Precinct go. Tina Daniels, Bruce Rand, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I think you all have copies in front of you of what we did in our budget for 2024. And we do not impact the town budget or the tax rate in any way. I want to stress that. And what we did in 2022, we were awarded 2 grants by DES. We have almost completed each grant at the end of this year, not quite, but we're almost there. We have completed, almost completed the meter replacement project. We've done the replacement of our fire pump up on Juniper Drive and the wiring. We're just waiting for one more piece to come in and for Eversource to do the connection. And that's just, like everybody, that's just a supply chain issue at this point. The only thing we can note, and this is a Manchester Waterworks thing, because we're a distributor of Manchester Waterworks water. In the last 2 years, Manchester Waterworks has done an increase of 9%, and they start that on October 1st. That's in line 2, because Joe, you look like you're trying to find it. Oh, okay. And they historically have either had very low rate increases or at times no rate increases, but like 3% or 0%. But the last 2 years, they've done 9% rate increases, and I just think they're going to continue to do that. And we have to pass that on, unfortunately, to the consumer, because we have to pay for it, because we have contracts, and I signed the last contract, which is a 10-year contract, for what we pay for water. And then we just have the salary line increase, and this is just due to the growth of our department. There's 3 of us that get paid, but we're salaried, but we're part-time employees too, and 2 of us are always on call. And that's it. So.
Beautiful. First question, mileage. Do you anticipate to put any reimbursements for mileage?
Do we put in what for mileage?
Do you plan on putting any reimbursements in for mileage?
Only Lee would be putting that in, and does Lee put in anything for mileage?
No, it's really, if there's any conferences or anything like that, he goes to, but
Okay.
locally, running around, no.
Okay, and the hydrant replacement program, you're going to spend that entire line?
We do each year. We do 1 hydrant a year for hydrant replacement. We plan that unless there is an accident, and the last 2 hydrants that have been hit, unfortunately, have been hit with uninsured drivers. We've been fortunate that the way the hydrants have been hit, Lee's been able to repair the stem of the hydrant and to reset it. So we haven't had to buy a brand-new hydrant. So he has in order which hydrants are old and going out, and we want to replace everything and make them as standard as possible so that they all open one way and that they can all be serviced one way with parts and everything like that, and the same brand when possible too.
Okay, great. Are there any questions for Tina and Bruce? No questions? I'm gonna give the committee a minute or two. Is everybody all set? Okay with this? Brian? I don't mean to single you out, you just looked like you were still looking, so.
No. Well, I guess, just a clarification, this is a self-funded,
Yes.
okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay, so I will entertain a motion to send this budget to public hearing.
Question?
Nope, no, I'm just going to make that motion
Oh.
to send this budget forward to public hearing.
In the amount of,
In the amount of, oh gosh, put me on the spot there. In the amount of $258,449.
No.
288.
Oh, $288,253.
okay, so Richard Manzo makes a motion to send this budget to public hearing in the amount of $288,253, 0 cents. Is there a second? Second by Samantha Carnes. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, we're unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
15 minutes. Love it. All right, next up, Richard Fletcher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And good evening, everybody. Has everybody a copy of this budget?
I don't think I
That one wasn't sent to us.
Because I passed out 16 copies. And I don't know.
I have mine.
I mean, they were passed out at one point. A couple meetings ago, Richard?
On the-
I thought you meant tonight, I'm sorry.
No, no.
Yeah, I see it right here.
They were passed out the last meeting.
Put it in the folder a month ago.
I'm willing to pass my copy.
Okay, before I start with the figures, I thought I would just hit a little highlights of what this budget does,
All right, we're gonna give Richard the floor. Go ahead.
what this budget entails. It covers, this is a private entity, the Goffstown Village Water Precinct, and we operate by what we charge for water. It covers 4 buildings, a big, a water treatment plant up between the mountains, and a water treatment plant down behind our office on North Mass Street. We also have a building on Mountain Laurel Lane, which is off Back Mountain Road, which is a water treatment plant for 40 units over there. We have 3 employees, 2 vehicles, and a moving generator. I guess that pretty much covers everything I wanted to say. The front page of my budget shows what we take in for revenues. And it covers all the water charges and meter charges and hydrants and booster stations that we have for thawing pipes and forestry. On the mountain, we have 600 acres of land, and it's under a forestry management. He tells us when we should cut and when we shouldn't cut. So he pretty much takes care of what we have to do up there, and that's one of the requirements that if the land was left to us for, we had to do. It covers new services and service repairs, meter repairs, backflow test, which is required for all commercial buildings that are tied onto the water system to make sure there's no cross connections, which are inspected every year. Mount Laurel Water, that is a private water system off from Worthley Hill Road that we manage. We manage it for them and bill them, and they pay us for taking care of it. There's a generator in a big building that houses pumps, and the water mains coming into it, and it's hooked to our water system. The Mount Laurel Septic, which is another area off the Back Mountain Road, there's 40 homes there, and we have a pump house, 2 wells, and treatment equipment in the building that treats it for iron and manganese. It's an area that when we took it over, had a lot of problems with manganese, and we had to build it, put in equipment that would handle manganese, which was a state requirement. However, they dropped the requirement right now, but they're still working on it. It'll come back. In that front page, if you look down near the bottom, it says HHPD dam grant. We acquired a grant to repair our reservoir dams, which are 2 of them up on the mountain. And they used to be low hazard dams, and the state reclassified them as hazardous dams. We put $50,000 in it a couple of years ago, and now they're requiring us to put over $1 million to bring the dam up to par for what they require by the state of New Hampshire. And it's probably a good thing, because them dams have been there since way back in the late 1800s. And they really hadn't had much done until in the 1930s, and they raised the front of the dam so they could hold back more water for the town. But back in 1950, the Waterworks put in 2 wells up on the river behind our office, and them 2 wells are in a floodplain, and we got to raise the wells so they're out of the floodplain. We've had studies on it, and we got a grant from FEMA for $292,500. That was to do a study of what we had to do in that area. Now we got a grant for $1 million, which is a design work for that whole area, to raise everything up above the floodplain and straighten it out. Also put in equipment to treat the water, because the water coming out of the wells, one of them has a lot of rust. We're only using 1 well right now, We shut them down in the wintertime and use the reservoirs. In the spring, we turn back on and close the reservoirs down. And there's manganese in that water too, which actually meets the standards because there is no standards. But there's going to be very shortly, we understand. And that's why the state of New Hampshire is looking at everybody that has this problem, and they're kind of coming up with grants to try and correct all the problems. And this year, we got a $50,000 grant for a infrastructure assessment for our water department. It's about done now, and we have a little money left in it, but that'll be used up before the year's over. So anyways, we can go into the next 2 pages in the back. It tells where all the money's gonna be spent across the everything, what we're gonna do. I guess if everybody's looked at it, if there's any questions, I'll try and answer them.
Any questions for Richard? So we're looking page 2, page 3. Give the committee, go ahead, Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess, Richard, for the grants, the dam grants,
Yep.
which reservoirs are in scope?
The upper reservoir.
Upper, like
Yeah,
that?
it's the big one. What they gotta do is take about 2 feet off the top of the dam. They're not gonna let us have it anymore, have it as that high anymore. It was, 2 feet was raised on that dam back in 1933, and it gave more water, and they put in a big sluiceway going out. The sluiceway is deteriorating, and there's a seam on this upper 2 feet of the dam. It's not leaking, but they want it out of there.
Is there a name to that upper reservoir, or is it just called the upper reservoir?
We call it the upper reservoir.
Okay,
There's a lower reservoir, an upper reservoir.
gotcha, thank you.
Sam?
On line 4902, there's the, for house meters, it looks like this year it was budgeted for 66,000. We've spent 107,000, but next year we're only gonna spend 6,000.
That's right.
Is there a reason that the easy answer is we don't need new house meters, but I feel like, is there something greater than that?
No, there's repair work.
Okay,
There'll be some repair work.
and we just don't have to
And the
repair
other
as
thing
much?
is that there's metering equipment that's being read, like public service does.
Mhm.
And, you know, that has a tendency to get out of whack, and you have to take it and have it programmed.
Well, I guess I'm wondering why it dropped so much. It went from 66,000 to 6,000.
Because we did it, we programmed and changed all the meters.
Okay.
That's the price of new meters.
Oh, and so we just didn't need new meters, we're just keeping up with the old meters.
Right, oh yeah, the old ones were mechanical meters, and they're pretty accurate, but they get out of accuracy every once in a while, and we had to reprogram or fix them, you know. And so the to give a better reading, so it's more up to date, you know. It's all electronic. It's got a meter that you go around in the car and read the thing, you know. It saves everybody from walking in your house, going down the cellar, and take a reading.
Yeah. Awesome, thank you.
Other questions for Richard? Frank?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Richard, could you speak a little bit to new services on the first page underneath 3409?
Okay, so like every other department in the town of Goffstown, they have impact charges. This coming year, and if you look back in the budgets for the last 2 years, you'll see where that figure was there. That figure was put in there because there's gonna be a revenue from all the building that's going on in Goffstown, especially the factory site. And so, all of the units, we charge $2,600 as an impact fee. And then there'll be other ones on the off the Bog Road. I think, I'm not sure just how many there is. There's 70 units over there. It's not gonna be 70.
Yeah.
70 meters. I think it's four units per meter, so.
Okay. Yeah, I was just wondering why it changed, but thank you.
We've collected some of that money already, new services. Across New Villa, them units
Yep.
is one of them.
Okay. Other questions? Is there anybody that would like to make a motion on this? Richard?
Sure, I'll make a motion to move this budget to public hearing in the amount of $2,471,403.
Second.
What did we get for a figure?
Okay, so there was a motion by Richard Manzo to move this budget to public hearing in the amount of $2,471,000 for, sorry,
Okay, I don't-
$2,471,403.
I don't have that as a figure.
That's what we got on the bottom of the third page.
Oh, you're doing, oh, okay. Yep,
Okay, Richard Fletcher, would you like to second that motion?
I'll second.
Okay, so a motion by Richard Manzo, second by Richard Fletcher. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of sending this budget to public hearing? Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay, we're unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Richard Fletcher. All right, so third and last thing on our list is the school budget deliberations. So like I said, my goal is to send this budget to public hearing. I had a couple discussions with Jared Talbot. He indicated that we already went line by line, so if there's anybody that would like to make specific motions on any lines, please reference the exact line or the school in the area of the budget so that.
Work with the actual page too, so.
Yep, we can work with, that's good, and we can work with the same page. So, and if you need to reference with the notes, you have the notes as well. So, let's not go through line by line again, but if you have any questions, Scott's here to also answer questions. So, who would like to start? Are there any changes to this budget? Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to be on record that anything discussed or proposed by me as a duly elected Budget Committee member derives from a cost reduction perspective and/or lowering of the financial hardship expected by my constituents and the community at large. So with that being said, I motion to strike reference lines, well, 375 and 376, but that's on the notes. So on the actuals, it would be 273. Has to do with the AccuVote maintenance agreement, and I think that simply needs to be the responsibility of the town.
Okay, so there's a motion by Brian, this is on the actuals,
Yes,
to
to strike it.
strike the $4,000
What line is that?
online with the actuals page.
273.
273, that's the AccuVote agreement with the town. I
With
think
the
that-
school.
Yep,
But it
with
should
the
be
school.
the school responsibility. I'm sorry, the town's responsibility. So I want to
Okay.
strike that.
Okay, so a motion,
Go to what line are we on again?
So,
273.
reference line 273 on the actuals.
On where?
The actual sheet, not the notes sheet.
Not the note sheet, the actual sheet. And what Brian's referencing is reference line on the far left, 279, which is 1, 2, 3, 4.
No, 273.
273, which is the fifth line
What page?
on page 12. I was getting there.
Yeah.
I'll go page next to first next time.
Okay,
The
so-
line was again?
So before we discuss it, is there a second to Brian's motion? Well, we just, in order to discuss it, we need a second, so somebody want to second it?
I'll second it.
Okay, Frank seconds it. All right, so Brian, I'm gonna let you say why you'd like to cut it, slash line, and then I'm gonna let us use it.
Yeah, so again, I think it just simply should be the responsibility of the town. I know there was an agreement between the town and school where the town is picking up 4 machines and the school's doing 1 to make up the 5. I think it should be all in town's responsibility, so I wanted to strike that line item.
Okay. Laura?
So my question to clarify, so if that gets striked here, we still have to do it, right? So that'll just get added to the town, the 4K?
Correct me if I'm wrong, Danielle. I heard at one of the last meetings on the town side that the town was going to, I believe Derek Warren said the town was going to pay for these machines. So can you talk to me about, actually, Scott, can you talk to me specifically what's in this line? And then Danielle, can you clarify what the town's responsibility is?
You want to go first, or am I
Go ahead.
All right, so we'll tag team this one. From what Jared informed me about your discussions previously, many municipalities are looking to replace their machines in the upcoming years, and there was some discussion about how the school in the past had paid for 1 machine, to assist. And we did that simply because that we do have an election in March, and we wanted to be just contributors in a way. What you see here, though, is there is programming that is done for local elections, and that's what this amount is for. So we did not, I just want to make the record clear, we did not budget in this budget for any additional voting machines. Okay?
Correct.
Did not. And those machines, by the way, probably cost in excess of $10,000 a pop. So not 4. But we do have to pay for programming with AccuVote, so when it goes through the card readers and the cards, so that's our contribution for that. And the town does the same thing on their side. So in my opinion, this is a school responsibility, and you can fill in any gaps.
So, as Scott was explaining, the town has budgeted for machines separately. This item in question specifically for the programming, it's correct that it has to do specifically with the coding of the machine for the school's ballot, which the town has no oversight over at all. That goes through the school clerk, not the town clerk. So that ballot is determined by the school board and the budget committee based on which articles will be on the ballot, the ballot programming of the machine. That's what this is in reference to, specifically for that ballot. The same thing as the school also pays for printing of their own ballots.
Okay,
So that's where the separation occurs.
thank you. Any other discussion, Brian's motion? Laura?
I just want to make sure I understand. So this being cut, what would the ramifications on that end be?
It would be our understanding that there are 2 elections that happen in March.
Yeah.
One's for the town, one's for the school. And this proposal would be cutting the ability, the funding for the school to be able to do the oversight for its local election in March.
Correct.
Because we have the oversight with the Department of Ed, with all of the, with the functionality to do that.
Okay, Peter?
Well, the school's required to print their own and service their own ballot. And if this funding's cut, they would just have to find it someplace else in their budget to pay for it. I mean, they have to do it. It's not something that's not optional. It's a done deal. So we pay for ours, they pay for theirs. There's no difference.
Okay, Sam?
Ryan, did you have 2 lines that you were cutting in your motion?
Well, there was 2 on the notes, not on the actual.
Okay. So I guess my question is on clarity, is we're only talking about this one specific expenditure, right? We're not, I thought you had mentioned 2 different
I
lines.
did, on the
in your
notes,
motion.
there's 2, but on the.
On the actuals, there's
was
only one. Okay.
We're talking
Thank
about
you.
$4,000.
Yep.
Okay.
Any other discussion? So per budget committee rules, Danielle corrected me, I'm supposed to state who votes in the negative to the motion, and then I'll say who abstains from the vote. And then the minute taker will assume that the affirmative are the other people left out, okay? Frank?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had written down, and let me just clarify this. AccuVote maintenance is the responsibility, from what I understood, of the town. However, this money is going for programming/coding. That's where I'm missing the disconnect. That's where I'm getting the disconnect.
And I think maybe it's semantics in terms of the note itself, and sometimes that confuses all of us. Sorry about that.
Okay. So it's going to get done either way. The only question is, do we have a separate line for it, or is this just absorbed in their budget in some other way?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. All right, ready to vote? Ready to vote? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Okay, so Sam Kearns, Richard Fletcher, Lauren Dukas, Jared Talbot, Melanie Renfrew-Hebert, Laura Stevens, Olivia Welch-Erdel, Peter Jordantis, Richard Manzo, and Allison DeCesare vote in the negative, so the motion fails. Okay. Any other motions?
Actually, I have one, Mr. Chair, but would you mind helping me with?
It's okay with these because I'm saying this so the minute taker will know when I say it, when I say the names.
Okay, so motion. I was just looking at.
Richard Manzo, do you have something?
Yes. On page 10 of the actuals, reference line 224, I'd like to make a motion to strike that line from $22,463 to zero.
So there's a motion by Richard Manzo, line, or reference number 224, relative to school board stipends / that from $22,463 to zero.
Correct.
Is there a second? Brian seconds it. All right. Would you like to state?
Yes. My reasoning for this motion is pretty simple. Times are historically tough in America right now, and I just think that it's a pretty poor signal from elected officials who are trying to get these budgets to be as tight as possible to what's actually needed to provide services for their constituents, to be paying themselves as opposed to doing everything they can to keep that budget line as low as possible.
Okay. Other discussion? Jared?
I recognize what Richard's saying. That's why we didn't increase our stipends. However, as we note, in the town, they did increase all their stipends that they have. If we're looking to strike all elected officials, let's do it across the board, and I look forward to, if this is cut, we'll cut everything as we move forward, if that's kind of the focus that we want as a budget committee. I know that the select board does magnificent work. I know that the school board, I know that I put 40 hours a month in, but I love to do it. That's why I'm elected to do it, and I run to do it. And I'm not discounting anything that Richard says. It's just something that we've kept a steady rate on our stipends for a reason, because we try to have a fiscally conservative budget as we move forward and don't try to increase our stipends.
Laura?
I agree with Jared in the sense of if we're gonna strike a school board stipend, then any elected official stipend, I would be in favor of striking for that same reason that Richard said.
Okay, Samantha?
Is the minute takers stipend also in?
That's staff. That's not elected official. The minute
So,
Right? Is the minute takers
well, I
salary
can
isn't
answer
in
this
here?
because I'm the one that made this motion 2 years ago. It originally was part of the same line item, and we made sure to carve it out because that is a staff individual that is spending a lot of time transcribing our minutes. And so we thought that she should be paid in a different line item in case of these circumstances that might happen like this.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Other discussion? So I'll just say from a state rep. Oh,
one
go
more.
ahead, Lauren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I guess I said back.
I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. I'll just.
I try to look around, and you're usually over there, so.
I know, it's warmer over here. No, I lost my train of thought from having to flag you down. I apologize. It seems like there's been a bit of a sour taste in some of the discussions that the Budget Committee has had about stipends on our select board and our school board serving. I think it also puts in perspective that while I think the Budget Committee is a very important part, and I think it's been an amazing position for anyone to get to know the town, we don't put in the hours the school board and the select board does. Not even close. I mean, in the summer, we barely meet. We had our wonderful tours by department heads, which were immeasurably valuable. But how many hours a month do we put in budget season? I haven't calculated it yet. I wasn't anticipating this, this motion, but 2, 4, maybe 10? I mean, I think this is an insulting line to cut. I don't think it actually does any good. I think it just drives some adversarial tendencies where there don't need to be any. But I feel like, wouldn't it be nice if the Budget Committee got a tiny stipend? I mean, we don't put in the hours that the Select Board and the School Board does, not even close. So I would be voting no on this motion, and I think it might be, if we need to cut $20,000 or $25,000, I think we can do it somewhere else. I don't think this is a line to be done to our officials who are serving.
Thank you, Warren. Peter? Melanie?
I caution cutting any of the stipends for, of course, the select board and for the school board. And the reason why is when there's a dollar value to it, it's more like a job and you have a responsibility and you're more apt to be more committed to it. Whereas if you're a volunteer, and which is what Jared is indicating he thinks should be, then there's not such a commitment to the position where a volunteer could say, hey, I'm not getting paid for this. I'm going to, not go this week, or I'm not going to go to the budget committee as a selectman. I'm not going to go to the meetings 3 times a month. I'm not going to go to the budget committee meetings. I'm not going to attend the Parks and Rec meetings, and it goes on and on. So I don't think it's a good idea. It commits somebody because they are getting paid for it. And so I would vote against this.
Okay. Melanie?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I appreciate the discussion and the talk about parity, cut one, cut them all. I really wish that this committee had focused more on what the school board actually does and the work and hours that it entails in deciding whether or not these stipends were just, and bringing up the idea of cutting them unilaterally. It's a bit disappointing. Thank you.
Laura?
I'll just speak for myself, but I feel like myself and probably most of the committee is not bitter we don't get a stipend. I personally realize the school board does so much more, and so much more is required of them. Same with select board. I don't put them all on the same level as far as time put in. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Jared?
Yeah, just a response. I'm not in favor of cutting this line. I just see where the thoughts come from. I just want to clear the record on that. I'm not in favor of cutting this.
Laura?
Yeah, that's my agreement with Jared as well.
Richard?
Right now, we are talking about the school budget. If there were any motions in regards to town stipends, that would be at the next meeting, not today.
Yeah.
So in terms of their relevance together, I'm not really sure I see the connection. But just speaking for myself, I am totally willing to make our elected officials outside of full-time staff members volunteer positions. I totally agree with that, 100%.
Frank?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with what Richard said and a chunk of what Jared said. I'm sure we've all had neighbors that are talking about their property tax bills. Anybody who received them, they're not happy. And I agree, obviously, that the select board and the school board have a greater workload than other committees, but I think it would send a very good signal that we're cutting where we can, and I would be in favor of making them volunteer positions. I don't think anybody on the budget committee is shirking their responsibility because we're not getting paid a stipend. So I'd be in favor of making them volunteer positions. So I'd be voting yes on this. Thank you.
Other discussion? Allison?
Approximately how much would our bills go down if we cut this position?
I'm not gonna do the math on it. I mean, I guess that's.
Do you have a guesstimate?
It's 22, like a penny, like, I don't know. I mean, I'm not gonna do.
Right, so you're sending a signal to our elected officials that you don't value their time to save a penny on all of our tax bills.
Well,
That's kind of my thinking in that. It's still such a small number in a big picture that, and most people aren't even gonna know that we did that unless they saw a difference in their tax bills.
Olivia?
Well, I completely understand what people are saying. I don't think that any of the select board or the school board members are running to receive their stipend. I mean, it is an incentive. I think it does show value, but I don't think any of them are solely relying on their stipend to make ends meet. And it is a tough time for everyone. I completely get that, and I completely agree. For working families and individuals in general, it is a hard time. But I think devaluing officials isn't a good way to move forward.
Okay. Any other discussion? Brian?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I respect everyone's comments, for or against it. I guess where I'm coming from, and I don't know what, and I'll specifically talk about school board, I'm not talking about select board. I don't know everything the school board does in regards to the meetings and the amount of time, and I know it's quite a bit. But I'm with Richard on this. I think you get into public office, and it should be voluntary. There shouldn't be any kind of money attached to it, because once you attach money to it, there is a change of behavior, for good or for ill. And I like to strike that because, again, I think you should get in public office to serve your constituents in the community, and there should be no money attached to it, period. And again, regardless of the workload, I think there should be no money attached to it. And again, knowing what the state reps do, they have quite a bit of workload, and they get paid $100 a year. So to me, it's like money is irrelevant. I think it's more about you should be a volunteer position and keep money out of it so it doesn't change behaviors. And again, to Frank's point, I think it does send a good message to the community. Yes, it's a small amount, but I think it shows in good faith that we're trying to make decisions to affect our community for the greater good, because again, our tax rate and our tax increases, it's not sustainable. And at some point, we have to make hard decisions to keep things in line so people can stay here, can thrive. So I'm going to be voting in favor of this.
Lauren?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I may clarify what you said. So we're using our budgetary oversight instead of saying, is this a reasonable, is this a historic expenditure? Your objection is more along a political ideology line on this should not be the way it is. So I want to cut that line. Is that how you're interpreting? I know it's Richard's motion, but that was the statement that you're making. That's what I'm hearing. Is that correct?
Well, it's again, you probably have to repeat what you said. But again, from my opinion, it's a budgetary oversight. We're trying to save money for the community and my constituents. And again, granted, there's a lot of additional monies that they're asking for, and this is probably a very good way of reducing our expenditures. That's my first thing. And then secondarily, going back to the position, I think it should be voluntary. It shouldn't be paid. I don't think money should be involved if it does affect motivation.
Lauren, you all set?
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you.
You're welcome. Jared?
One of the other items, which I'm sure many of us know, even though that we're talking about elected officials, these are still jobs that are paid by the town. This is why we also have insurance lines. We have liability lines. So there is a danger, and I know that with the budget committee, we don't get stipends, but there is a danger that if we have employees from the town that are working, there is also liability for them that could occur if they're not getting paid as well. So I just wanted to also throw that out as a different item, but it's something that's still relevant to the conversation.
Peter?
Just to hit on what just Jared just said, there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes that happens with non-public, emergency management, things like that, that we and the school board are involved in on a regular basis. And we can get called at the crack of dawn and say, hey, we got a flood, we need you in emergency management. We did that during COVID. We set up emergency management. We were having regular emergency management meetings. And some of these things happen during working hours. So you're actually losing pay to go participate in some of these. As if you've done any site walks with the planning board, you know that you're going in the middle of the day, you're not getting paid for that. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that the select board and the school board do when they have to tour the schools and come in and do things that they should be compensated, and the select board should be compensated. Now, this is a bottom line budget. If you cut it, right, does that say that they can't put it back in? I'm asking.
Well, if you're making a point, you don't have to ask members a question, but
No, but I'm
you want to make
just
the
saying,
point
yeah.
that they could, right?
Right, they could put it back in.
Okay.
If
Any
you
other-
want to save that money, I would say find someplace else to save it. Don't hurt the people who have been working on this, putting it together, whether it's on my side or on Jared's side, that have done the work and got the head and sit there and go through the numbers every week. I would suggest that if you want to make a $22,000 cut, let's find $22,000 someplace instead of hurting the people that do all the hard work. We don't want to hurt our people. They're hard to find. Volunteers are hard to find.
Richard Fletcher.
Mr. Chairman, I'm in favor of paying what they've been getting right along. And I think it's well worth our investment. And therefore, I'd like to move the question.
Okay, so Richard moves the question. Anybody second that?
Second.
Okay, second by Peter. Any more discussion on moving the question? All is in favor? Any opposed on moving the question?
On moving the question, okay, sorry.
Clarification?
I was-
What does that mean? I'm-
Moving the question
Ends
means no more
debate.
discussion, we just vote on
Okay.
it. Any opposed? Okay, so we're unanimous on moving the question. All right, so all those in favor of Richard Manzo's motion to cut reference line 224 relative to school board stipends from $22,463 to $0, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Samantha Kearns, Richard Fletcher, Lauren Dukas, Jared Talbot, Melanie Redford Hebert, Laura Stevens, Olivia Welcher-O'Dell, Peter Georgantis, and Allison DeCesare vote in the negative. So the motion fails. Any abstentions? Okay, great. Any other discussion, motions? Frank.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Give me a second while I write this down. Let me see, I would like to, I have a handful of motions that orbit around money in the budget that was far above actuals, and I've got a number of them, I think 5 or 6. The first one, on the budget with notes, is line 47. On the actuals, it is 39.
What page?
2.
Page 2.
I'm on the actuals.
And on the actuals, it is page 2 also. The 3-year average on this is 45,000. I'd like to,
This is line number 39, page 2 of the actual sheet.
yes, 39, page 2. I'd like to motion that to reduce the 95,000 number to 89,000.
Okay, is there a second to Frank's motion? Brian seconds it. Go ahead, Frank. I'll just give you a minute if you need it.
Okay, yeah, just give me a minute, I'm on my.
So to be
second.
clear, this is the 1,100. If I'm seeing this right for the committee's review, this was in the ring presentation. The $6,000 was the increased cost of contracted services for GTV and Parks and Rec services. Am I correct, Scott?
That's correct.
Okay. So, Jared, Jared, can you talk more about that, or maybe
I
get it off? Scott?
So I get together with Danielle every year, and we talk about what are the proposed increases for those particular services. So we get services from the town for GTV and Parks and Recreation. Danielle passes what she believes that increase is going to be, so that we can then reimburse the town for that. So that's how, so yes, there might be historicals, and I can certainly defer to Danielle if possible,
Well-
Mr. Chair.
And Jared?
So just to give an understanding, a couple years ago, the town and the school made an agreement where we would, before we would pay for like a school resource officer. I believe we don't pay for that
correct,
anymore.
right.
And we split GTV, but now since GTV lives here, we pay for GTV for all of our games, all of our meetings that we have, all those activities. So I think it was around 2020 or 2021 where we decided to make that split. Even though that this is new, this is, again, a difference in how we budget. Anything that wasn't approved by the voters is considered new. So this is a pay increase for GTV individuals that would be listed under new. It doesn't go into our default like it does with the town. So that's why you're seeing it is, these are basically going to be more money for those individuals that are working the GTV.
We're reimbursing the
process.
town, basically. So.
Danielle?
So last year, the position was added specifically for the school to hire a full-time GTV education tech, and that position was not filled at the beginning of the budget. So the number we were working off of was an estimate originally, and then once we had the true figures, we billed the school only for the actuals that are incurred during that year. Make sure that was clear.
Any more discussion on this? Frank, would you like to say something?
So the actuals for 2023 were 86,000, but that positional change happened in the last quarter, or?
I'd have to look up the date of hire. I don't have that in front of me off the top of my head. But the school budgets their year differently than we do, and it was a transitional year where we had a vacancy at the beginning.
Okay.
It wasn't a vacancy of our full year, but where the school's year ended 6/30, it was a little different that you see. As Jared indicated, the SRO positions, there are 2 SROs assigned to the school. Those positions are 100% funded on the town side, even though those officers are assigned solely to school tasks during the school year.
Okay.
So it was just a shift where we started to back off of that one and go with the GTV. There's still shared resources between the 2 entities. We were just trying to better delineate the ones that are called out specifically. That education technician was something the school board asked for specifically so they could have coverage not only of meetings but also of, games or other events that may occur. The Parks and Recreation split, they're maintaining fields that the school owns, lining all of the school fields. So there's some clear delineation there on tasks that we're asking for reimbursement.
Okay, so the 6,000 is actually going to the GTV people that operate it. Okay. I will actually withdraw that motion based on that. I wasn't aware of that.
Frank withdraws. Brian, you all set?
Yeah,
Would you like to
yeah.
Okay, perfect. Great. Frank?
Yep, Mr. Chair, I have, let me see, a couple of others. I'm looking at, let's see. Budget and notes, line 289, page 10. And on budget with the actuals, reference number 198, page 9. once again, looking at the three-year averages, the three-year averages are about 18,000, and they're budgeting 50,000. I'd like to make a motion to change the 50,000 to 30,000.
Okay, so motion by Frank on reference line 198. So it's location 000221318-322, professional program improvement. The motion is to cut that line from 50,000 to 30,000, so that's a $20,000 delta. Is there a second on that? I'll go ahead and second that. So Frank, would you like to say anything else?
Yeah, I mean, if we're looking at cutting our belts and, or tightening our belts, and with the overriding thought going through my head of our neighbors getting their tax bills and not being happy, in this budget, when you look at the 3-year averages, this is significantly higher. It's actually the last year in 2023 is at 24,357. We're actually looking at doubling that in this budget. Okay, so that's why.
Okay. Jared, I'm going to let you go first if you'd like.
Yeah, it's been brought to my attention that this is actually contractually obligated for our unions with GESS, with the GEA. So we do have to set aside so much money for professional development for our teachers and support staff to go to school, get additional certification, grow their knowledge, advance their careers. So this is a contract item that was approved by the voters.
Are you okay with that, Frank?
Can you, I guess, speak to that a little bit more? It was approved last election.
There was a collective bargaining agreement that we approved 2 years ago, and that was relative to teacher development, right? And that was, the exact figure in that was $50,000. It was approved in the 2023 budget.
Yeah, it's in the CBA, and what happens in that situation, it is for professional development, people to take additional courses. Teachers sometimes are taking a class, say, at like UNH or Riviere or other schools, and you'll note that we don't do budget transfers in and out of that thing. If we don't spend it, we just don't spend it. So that's why it's not, arguably, I totally, I appreciate everything what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
This is just one that the union and the community voted to support that CBA. It's a $50,000 pool of money.
Right.
If the teachers spend $65,000, they can only get reimbursed up to $50,000. We just historically haven't seen that. When you have newer teachers, and some of these newer teachers might come in with a bachelor's degree, and then they want to pursue a master's degree, you'll see more of that recently. I can tell you in the last year, especially this last summer, we brought in more teachers with some experience. So therefore, you see less professional development going back to get your master's, because a lot of these people already had a master's.
Gotcha.
So, but as you can see, this is not one where, there are some lines that, like, there is never a budget transfer even contemplated, and that's one of them, because this has to be a pure bucket of money that can never be overspent and never, how do I say this, like, it's a pure number, right? It's just whatever the teachers go for courses that we reimburse out of the fund. So.
Yeah, I mean, given that it's a contractual obligation, and that with that explanation, I will also withdraw that motion.
Okay.
Let me see. The next one.
I'm going to let him finish up. Is
I
that
just wanna-
specifically?
Yeah, I wanted to just clarify.
Yeah, so the discussion, we've withdrawn the motion, so like, if you want to
So even just a
talk.
clarifying thing, just because I'm curious?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so that 50,000, it's possible that teachers can continue their professional development, but that it's just out of their own pocket, above that number? Like, say this pool is used
yes,
up.
If it's all used up, yes, then they would be out of their own
Okay.
pocket. So there is in the contract what they would get for a particular limit, say on a course.
Right.
There are certain times throughout the year where we know who is putting in for those requests, and if it were to ever to exceed it, we would pay up to the limit, and that would be it. So,
Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I just have a request for future deliberations, is that if there's anything attached to a CPA, if there's some kind of asterisk, so we know there's clarity on that.
Yeah, we could try to add that to the notes as we go forward.
That would be, even if it's a CBA or
Anything contractual.
special ed, like stuff that really
Yeah.
we can't, like
That'd be great.
statutorily.
Definitely take that feedback to help kind of guide our conversations for future boards.
All right. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, Frank?
Okay, under budget with notes, line 380, page 14. This is a similar type of question, looking at basically the 3-year average as well. I'd like to make a motion to reduce the 2130028 to 1.9 million. 380 is the reference number on the budget with notes, and the reference number on the actuals is line 276, which is on page 12 of the actuals.
Okay, so that's the motion. I'll second it just so Scott we can talk about what's in that line.
Yeah, so this is the SAU. So this is our funding payment to the SAU that we're required to pay. Because the SAU 19 has 2 districts. It has Goffstown and New Boston. Goffstown has to pay, well, it depends on population, but roughly 60 to 70% of the, it's higher than that?
78%.
78% of total SAU budget. So this is just a budget transfer going to the SAU 19. And we'd be required to pay this regardless if we
Voters
change the
approved
number.
the area agreement too, so,
Okay, so it's a pre-approved area agreement.
area agreement.
So this is in essence, like the last
Default.
motion, default contractually obligated,
Right.
not within our realm.
Correct.
I will then withdraw that motion as well.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Yep, go ahead, Sam.
So is the reason that this number has jumped so high from, I mean, just even from 2023 to 2024, and then again from 24 to 25, is because there's just more kids?
No.
No, this is, so the SAU 19 is another business. Think of it as another business. And they have expenses, and those expenses have increased because people get paid more. And so they pass on, that business passes on their cost to their customers. The Goffstown School District is one of the customers. We pay 78% of their budget.
Can I,
Go
I
ahead,
want to
Scott.
clarify, you are partially correct though. And this is a little complicated, it gets into the weeds, but the apportionment, the amount that Goffstown pays and New Boston pays, you take the entire budget and there's a statute right now that says that you have to use 2 numbers. One is the student population, okay, that is the students that are in attendance at New Boston schools and in Goffstown schools. So yes, if that proportionality changes, there are more Goffstown kids, then Goffstown pays more, okay? New Boston pays less. The second component is what's called your equalized valuation of your properties. Well, Goffstown just went through a revaluation of its properties, and with that proportionality changed a bit, so Goffstown maybe pays, there are some times where that it fluctuates because New Boston and Goffstown are on different cycles for these revaluations. So there was a couple of years ago where New Boston paid like more because they just went through their reval, and it changed the equalized assessed valuation, and then when Goffstown did theirs, it changed back. So that's why every year we look at both of those numbers. So it's the student population as well as the equalized assessed valuations, coupled with what Jared said, when there are increased costs for SAU, then those are also included in there. So it is a little bit of a piece, and it's a moving target every year, and it can fluctuate a couple of percentage points, in terms of what New Boston.
Okay. Allison?
Scott, can you tell us a little, what does the SAU do?
That's a really great question, and I've been working there for 5 years. I still don't know. So the SAU is responsible for the overall management and oversight of the New Boston and Goffstown schools. So they are the administrative arm or the management arm. So there are many different functions, and wasn't really prepared for this question.
Sorry.
So for my side, fiscal services, we're responsible in my department for the oversight of the budgets, the payment of all of the bills, all of the tuition agreements, all of the paperwork that you could ever imagine. There are thousands of checks that get cut every year, payroll of over 600 full and part-time and temporary employees, coaches, all those types of things. They also deal with, on the special ed side, we have a team of folks that deals with special ed transportation, making sure that kids' needs are met with respect to IEPs and things like that. We have an HR department, obviously, with 600 employees, both full, part-time, and temporary. There is turnover in that respect. We're responsible for background checks, interviewing, exit interviews, you name it.
IT? Right?
IT. So we have an IT department. We have a facilities director. We have all these different projects that we do. We've done millions of dollars of projects from windows to fields and responsible for all of that oversight. And then the superintendent services, that's responsibility for curriculum oversight, these types of meetings. So it's the superintendent, assistant superintendent. So I will just say this is man, what the heck? I'm getting old anyway. I'll just editorialize. I worked in the private sector. I'm working a lot harder for less pay. Here in what I do, it is a lot. It is never quiet in kind of what we do. I invite anyone to come to the SAU, and you can sit in my office and you can see the fun. It is always busy.
So you don't like getting my 7:30 at night phone calls, or?
I don't mind.
Oh, okay.
But no, it is quite challenging. And we're also dealing with, the 3,300 students and all of those issues, whether that be discipline or all the other stuff, coming to meetings and all the communication aspects. So it's all of that.
Okay.
You're in
Quite a
charge of
bit.
the snow days too, right?
I'm not. The superintendent is, and that's kind of funny that you say that, because I always make fun of him for that.
Allison, all set? Okay.
Thank you.
Never thought I'd get that question, but okay.
Go ahead, Frank.
Okay, the next motion we are looking at on the budget with notes, page 14, reference line 404. I'd like to make a motion to reduce that amount from $10,500 to $3,000. This is along the same lines of when looking at the actuals, which are on page 13, reference line 297. That line has spent $3,150 over the last 3 years, and yet there's a budget amount requested of $10,000. So,
Okay, I'll second that so that we can talk about what's in that line. So the motion is line 404 of the notes. Can you tell me what the actual line number, reference line that is?
the actuals in 2021 were
No,
zero.
can you talk about the reference line of the actual sheet? Do you know what number that is?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I know. So
297.
297.
Okay.
I think people are shuffling between.
Yep, 297 and 404 are the two line reference numbers.
297.
Okay, so 297 on the actual sheet. The motion is to cut that from 10,000 to 3,000?
3,000, yes.
Okay, so a $7,000 delta. Can we talk about what's in that line?
Yeah, this one is not contractually obligated. This is your professional development for your administrative staff. So it would be your administrators who might, again, go for additional trainings, but this is not part of a CBA.
Okay. So, and how, has this been used historically often?
It's I think it's hit or miss, and if you look at the actuals, you'll see that sometimes you have an administrator who may be looking for an advanced degree. Keeping in mind that for an administrator, most of our administrators have a master's degree when they're in that, prior to them just qualifying for a job. But then if you want to be above and beyond that, like let's say you want to be like an assistant superintendent or a director, you would need an advanced degree. That's called CAGS, I believe, Certificate of Advanced Graduate Studies, and that's typically a requirement for like a principal, like a director, department head type thing. And then they would need to take additional coursework for that, and that's really what that line, is for. But in fairness, like. One, what you talked about before, something that teachers can, this one is not. This one is something that you could look at historicals.
Okay.
Yep.
Any discussion on this line? Melanie?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know that right now, in our current environment where we're struggling to find teachers, taking or reducing dramatically anything that would be a draw to get a new teacher in might not be the most prudent thing to do at the moment.
I just want to clarify,
development?
this is not for teachers. This is for administrative level. This is for your assistant principals, your special ed facilitators, those types of things. By the way, which are still difficult to find really good people, just for whatever that's.
Thank you.
The
Can I
special ed
amend that?
facilitators are covered in the special ed lines, though, right? Their professional development
Not,
is different?
not in, it depends. A lot of times they're not. If they're considered administration, it's still administration.
Okay. Go ahead, Melanie.
Can I amend that to say, to get qualified educational
Yes, that would be fair,
staff at all?
but it's not, yeah.
Thank you, Melanie. Lauren?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. May I ask, Scott, you said we could look at historicals. 21, we didn't do anything, or 23.
Right.
There were no actuals. Do you have anything
Right now.
readily available, like easily available? I'm just,
If you give me 45 seconds, I can do an audit trail report on it, but.
Are you okay with that?
oh, yeah, yes,
Okay,
sir,
any
sorry.
other discussion on this? Okay, we're just gonna give Scott a minute.
All right. Just bear with me a second. 2410.
I know, right?
It's all this pressure.
Brian?
Was the motion on the floor to reduce from 10.5 to 3,000?
3,000.
Okay,
Yes.
So it's a $7,500 delta.
all right, thank you.
So it'd be in line with the 2022 actuals.
Okay.
I'm unaware of anybody, but, we'll find out pretty soon. Usually if we have someone, we would encumber the funds to reserve it for them, so we'll see.
We
But I
had,
don't-
Go ahead.
know yet.
thank you. Remind me, actually, how many new administrators?
3 or 4?
3 or 4?
Yeah. Right now, there is nothing encumbered, which means that nobody has put in paperwork to say that they're going to be taking a class this year. So that's all I can
So
tell you.
theoretically, we could put this money in next year if you see there's an influx of administrators.
That is fair enough to say.
And,
Go ahead, Jared.
yeah, I would say that even if this line is cut, the school board, I can say with great confidence, even though I'm only one member of 9 on it, we would make sure that we would increase this line to cover professional development.
Okay.
So,
Peter?
I guess my question was, if it hasn't been used, why was it increased by 5%?
we have a note on here, that's what I was going to ask Scott once he was done. We also have depot office space, water services was listed here.
That's the water bubbler, is that?
Does this also
Yeah.
also include?
Hold on, I'm going to make sure that
Off-site?
Such a weird-
Hold on, I got to make sure I'm in the
That
right
bottled
spot
water
here.
that
Just bear
come
with
into
me.
That one place, remember?
Bear with me.
Yes.
2410. I was looking at, give me 1 second.
Yeah, this is 2410.
I want to make sure I'm in the right
0339.
line here. I might have misinformed you there. Hold on, 2410.
Because it said something about tech
Hold on.
director, custom programming needs was on the notes.
All right, that's what it is. I apologize. Scratch everything I said. It's not about professional development. I was looking at another line. But we do,
It does call it that.
okay. So this particular one is, our tech director, he utilizes independent consultants for things like customizing our phone systems, some network configurations that we cannot do with our own staff. It's outside of their level of expertise. This is a contracted service line. So anything 339 means that we're using someone who's not an employee of the school district, and we're hiring a consultant, or we're hiring a company or a contracted service. The $500, yes, you're correct. That one, we now have staff in it's a New England Sheet Metal. We lease space from them, and we do have water bubbler service that's there. That's why we added the 500. But the 10,000 is specific to IT consultant use, and that's what and that we didn't change in terms of one budget to another. But you're saying that the historicals don't. I don't know why I'm
Okay.
just lost power. So.
Richard Fletcher, how's the water quality in the village? Pretty good? Good, okay. Laura, did you have something?
I think we've answered it.
Okay. So the motion is to cut it back down, or cut it down to 3,000, so that's a $7,500 delta. It's been motioned, second, any more discussion? No, we ready to vote? All right, all those in favor of that cut, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Lauren Dukas, Jared Talbot, Melanie Renfrew Hebert, Allison DeCesare are opposed, but that motion passes.
Would you mind saying those opposers one more time?
Lauren Dukas, Jared Talbot, Melanie Renfrew Hebert, and Allison DeCesare. Okay. I'm gonna give you a second, Frank. Doing double duty here. Scott, with those changes, you'll be ready to get us a final number?
Yeah, I just powered off because I lost
just
power, but
giving you a heads up.
I will be able to do it.
Sam.
Thank you. Scott, the line that you were talking about with administrative development, do you know where that is?
It's a 2410 line, professional development. It's a district line.
Well, there's one right there above that, teacher tuition reimbursement, that one.
Yeah.
So that's
That's a
4,800.
2410, 241.
So the 293 line? Is that what that line
That's
is?
right. I gotta get my power up. Get this
Sorry.
thing going. It's okay.
Well, if it's under the district line, we don't have any teachers under district, it's school line. We'll just give
It
Scott
might
a
just be the
second.
one above, right? The other
Yeah.
professional ed services?
296, I think that's what we're
Yeah.
talking about.
You probably just looked one line up.
Yeah, I was looking at the 329 line. I apologize, so. And that one we are spending from, so.
Okay, the teacher tuition reimbursement, I'm looking a couple lines up. What's that?
Say again?
The teacher, I'm looking at reference line 293.
290.
What's the difference between that and the other line we're talking about?
So it says teacher, but 2410 is an administrator, so this would be, this is what I was referring to, where it would be course reimbursement at a university type thing. That's the one I was referring to.
Laura?
So are we funding that line right now because someone is currently in school and we know we want to be reimbursing?
Again, I'd have to see if there's any encumbrances in that, and I
Just
don't.
'cause for the actuals, there's nothing.
Right, and I'd have to see, let me see if there's anything in that.
So we can give Scott a moment, and I'll let Frank keep going, but just keep in mind, we'll look at,
Huh?
we'll go back to 293.
Yes.
That would be SAU if that were the case, but if it was the assistant superintendent.
Okay, yeah,
it
you're
would
right,
be
you're right.
in a different.
Okay, Frank?
Okay. Only 16 more. Just kidding, only 2.
See you in the morning, Frank.
Hold on, Frank.
We were just giving you a second to catch, Scott.
Yeah, so I just wanted to clarify here, on that other motion, right, where it was $7,500. I would assume, should I assume that it was $7,500 from
Proposed.
the proposed?
Only thing we can change is proposed.
Correct. Okay, so.
So your line would be 2,500 then.
Okay.
Right?
No.
No, 3.
The proposed will be $3,000.
Okay.
Right, that's what,
And the 25 new will be negative 7,500.
Okay.
Okay. Frank?
Everybody good? Okay. Under proposed budget with notes, line 2480 on page 86.
86?
Page 86, budget note, proposed budget with notes.
Are we staying in the district area?
So I'm giving Scott a moment to catch up, but we're going to go back to line 293 of the actuals, because I had a question about that, but I'm going to let Frank go on, so we have I'm going to let Frank go, and then,
Yeah, Are we staying in the district only before we move on to schools? Because I thought that was our agreement.
I think we are just hopping around if somebody has changes in any lines.
In the districts, and then we'll go to the individual schools.
I'm okay doing whatever, so.
I mean, because we have a lot of lines I know people are going through, and because they weren't prepared for looking at the actuals versus notes, I'd be comfortable to say, do we have anything in the districts? Once we finish the district, then we go to Bartlett. Once we're done with Bartlett, then we go to the Maple. That way, we don't have one person continue on, but we stick in each section of the actual budget itself.
I'm okay
That's what I
doing,
thought.
I'm okay doing that, but I'm not gonna like tell somebody they can't make a motion if it's like the end and they wanna go back to the district or something. Because it's a final total deliberation, so. Are there any, so Frank, are there any?
I literally, there are two more.
There's
I
two
think
more.
it's gonna be along these lines, and I think we would expedite the process by getting it out of the way now.
Sure. I don't know, that's not my call, that's your call.
let's quit talking about it and move
Yeah.
on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Might have been done by now.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, proposed budget with notes, page 86. Reference number 2480. My motion is to reduce. Yep, the actuals is reference line 1693, which is on page 74. My motion is to reduce the 7,500 to 5,000, more in keeping with the three-year average.
Okay, so the motion is to, a change of, a cut of $2,500 out of line, reference line 1693, 10, 305, 2410, 534 relative to postage, from 7,500 to 5,000, so a $2,500 delta.
Correct.
Okay, and you did that because it would keep in line with the actual. So this is relative to postage for the high school, correct? Jared, 305 is high school?
305 is the high school.
So this is postage just in the high school. Would you like to talk about that?
Yeah, just that it's in line with the three-year averages. The highest year of the last three is I'm sorry, 2021 was higher, but the last 2 years in essence are what I'm recommending to go forward.
Mr. Chair, was there a second?
Oh, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Yeah.
Okay, Sam seconds it. So I make the assumption that we're mailing less and doing electronic communication more.
To a degree,
To a degree.
Obviously we struggle when the post office increases the rates,
Right.
but we have always endeavored to try to do more electronically, but there are, so,
Do it.
to digress too
So,
much.
do it.
But,
Do it. Say it. Say it.
you need me on this wall. No, I'm sorry. So I contacted Joe about a bill because right now, like say special ed, the law says that you must send all of your IEP notices via US mail. I missed the deadline on a state rep, so I contacted Senator Murphy, which you told me to do, and he put it in LSR, so now we can, if that bill passes, we can send things via email. But there's a lot of laws and regulations that need housekeeping in New Hampshire. So, now we're forced to send snail mail, on a lot of things because the law requires it. So we're, I'm hoping that some of these bills will pass so that it'll make it a little bit more efficient. But that is the issue, and sometimes the law dictates that we mail. In this particular case, we are trying to keep our costs low in email, more e-registration, all that type of thing. So
When you say something straightforward in the State House, that means that it's going to be a crazy
I know.
crapshoot. So
Yeah.
just so you know. Good, Laura.
Thank you. So the 2021 actual, I'm guessing it's still residual from COVID when we were mailing more stuff? Snail mailing more stuff?
It's
Just to, because
possible.
there's a big difference?
It's possible. And the other thing too is just so, everybody's aware is that, since our postage, we have postage machines, so we load and then you expend and you load. So sometimes like in the actuals, you'll have a high year and a low year. So looking at and I think Frank did, I think you looked over a period of 3 years, but that's kind of how I, would look at that. And again, not knowing is there anything wacky on the horizon? So this one for me is kind of benign,
Okay, Lauren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was trying to refresh my memory, I'm sorry if I'm getting this wrong. Wasn't there a change in the protocol for special education notification that it was required that's why some of those postage lines
Yeah.
in multiple schools went up?
Yes.
That was explained to us?
Yeah, and but that is,
But that's not.
That's not in this particular line.
It's a special ed line.
That's a special ed line.
All right, because I thought
Yeah,
it showed
you are
up
cor-
in
No,
each
you're correct. and it-
school. Okay.
And
Cool.
that's what prompted me to then say, hey, can we change the law?
Please don't do that.
Well,
Just as
You
if
can
I may
testify-
editorialize.
You can testify against it then. I'm
sure Joe would be happy to see me.
January.
It's not my committee. I'd love to.
Oh, I thought it was legislative.
All right, wrap up the question. Any more discussion? All right, all those in favor of Frank's motion to cut reference line 1693 relative to postage at the high school from 7,500 to 5,000, please raise your hand now. Any opposed? Okay, Lauren Dukas, Olivia Welcher et al. Are opposed, and Richard Fletcher abstains. The rest are in support of the motion, so motion passes. All right, Frank, your last one?
One more, hold on 1 second. Richard Fletcher abstained?
Yep.
Hold on. Almost there. Okay, reference line 2607 on proposed budget with notes.
And then you have the actuals one as well.
Yes, page 90, and on the actuals, it is reference line 1757, which is page, 1753, which is page 77, last page.
Okay, can we talk a little bit about the other student transportation line? This is, again, in the high school.
Okay, hold on.
Yep.
Can you repeat the line?
1753.
This is on the notes, this is line 1753, reference line.
Oh, on the notes, 2607. On the actuals,
Yeah, 17.
1753. So my motion is to reduce the 4587 to 2,000, more in line with our historical numbers. Our 3-year average was under $600 a year, so reducing it to virtually 3 times what our average year is.
Okay.
I'm sorry, what were your numbers again?
Yep, so to, Frank's motion is reference line 1753 relative to other student transportation at the high school. It's the motion to change the proposed from 4,587 down to 2,000.
Down to 2,000.
Down to 2,000, so that's going to be a delta of $2,587. So that was a motion, I'll second it. Can we talk a little bit about what that line is about? Thank you, Jared.
Well, just a reminder, 2021 actuals, 2022 actuals were COVID years, so that's probably why we're not seeing any actual spends in that field. For the actual line item, what other transportation is for program 18, account 519. What is that? The 519? The account
It's a
program.
transportation.
Yeah, but what kind? Is this for?
I'm looking up because
Yeah.
this is, when it's other transportation, like,
I don't know if
I have to
this is-
see, I have to run a report
Yeah.
to see like what exactly that was.
I'm
because we have
thinking
so
this
many
is
different-
field trips.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking, but I'm not.
I'm gonna run a
It's,
report.
if it's 1753, the note says marine biology.
Yeah, so we didn't have those marine biology trips. Again, if that's what it says, and so you said it was the, hold on, let me go to it.
You need the full-
26, I'm looking at it here, 2607. Yeah, so what happens, we did not run that program due to COVID. So what happens is, students go to, I think it's Rye, New Hampshire for a couple of days, where they go on boats, they do marine biology, so it's the transportation to get all those students there over multiple days, essentially. We didn't do that for the 2 years of COVID.
Did the program double in the last year? Because the numbers did. Or the requested amount did?
What I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna run a quick report, and what I'll know is that what we tend to do is, we do try to, what's called encumber funds for that trip. So let me just do a quick report on that particular line to see what may have been done.
Thank you. We'll give Scott a minute. Jared, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll do my quick filler for this. So, student transportation for field trips, this isn't just mileage. This is paying somebody to travel there, stay there and get paid, and then travel back. So if we're talking 8 hours of being at a place, it's an hour drive, 6 hours you stay there, they get paid for that, and then the 1 hour drive back. So even if this might have been 2 trips with number of kids at $22 to $24 the rate, it can add up. So just want to give that explanation for any field trip that we have at any of our schools. Whether it's sports, same thing.
Okay. Other discussion? Just give Scott a hot second.
I'm just gonna stare at him.
Pressure's on.
Nothing's been encumbered yet, so it's, what happens usually is like January-ish, February is when they're booking these things with the entity out in Rye or Portsmouth, and then they'll set up the transportation and they encumber it. So, but I do know that we did not run these programs during COVID, and that's why you would see that. So I don't, quite candidly, I don't know the number of students, that level of detail, and I wouldn't. But as Jared stated, when we do run a bus, it is not uncommon for that to be, you're paying not only for the bus, but for the driver to be there the entire time, because they're not going to drive back to Goffstown and go back out they're going to be there, the whole time. So these trips they could be like $1,000 a bus, honestly, to do that, if you're going to be there for an 8-hour day.
Yeah, and my only question with the way the numbers are broken out, the actuals in 2023 are $1,757. So
Right.
we were able to do this with $1,757, and the request is for $4,587. So that to me says there's got to be almost a tripling of requests.
Let me do this.
or-
I have, if you would indulge me another
Mhm.
60 seconds while you're talking, whatever, I'm going to try to run a report to see what it was in 21 or 22, which I have the ability here, but it's always 3 years. I'll look back another couple of years to
Okay.
see what that line looked like, and we'll see.
Okay. I'm
Sounds
gonna go
fair.
Sam and then you two.
So I guess my thought on this explanation is if you're paying, it's got to be that there's 2 buses, right? Because
Multiple buses, yep.
if if I don't know how many kids fit on a bus, but 20, 30, right? The second that you get 20, if there's 21 kids on a bus, the second that you have 21 kids, you need a whole nother bus. Like, you can't tell that one kid they can't learn about marine biology, like.
Well, I don't think it's 20 kids a bus.
Yeah, I don't know. You're just throwing numbers out here.
Do the wheels on the bus in fact go round and round?
They might. My wheels are.
Laura?
Thank you. And too, at the high school level, we have to remember that year to year, kids take different courses. So there may be 3 marine biology classes this year, whereas last year, there was only 1 because that many kids were interested. So that is a normal fluctuation.
That's a good point. Melanie?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I would also posit that potentially not as many students would have gone on a field trip right at the end of the COVID season there. So possibly the numbers were lower for that year, and possibly they'll be higher now that people feel safer traveling.
And I guess my other,
Samantha?
my other curious question would be is this directly related to the cost of, did the wages for bus drivers increase?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That would be my other big question, because if, probably not that much, but
I think I'd like to have a separate conversation about that.
Speculate.
But I think we're gonna get through this line, and then we can talk about that as well. If you think. Oh, Lauren.
Thank you. No, it's fine. I was it was not super important. I was waiting to see if Scott was ready. I mean, I have a high school student now, and I know I've already been getting notifications to say, we're excited to run this program again, and now we're opening it up to all of these classes. So, they're going on a field trip. It's over the course of 4 days to break it down for all the kids. I saw that I'm getting notices from my middle school student as well. Same thing, we're bringing back this program, but we're opening up transportation for 3-4 days because we want more people to come. I have no idea if this pertains to this program, but I'm seeing it as a parent on that side of it saying, it's back, we want to do it, so.
So, just so that there's, in 2020, just so you can verify.
Put me on the.
Granite State WH.
Whale
right?
watch?
Floating lab out of Rye,
that's a fun one.
4787 is what we spent in 2020. So it's very possible that
4587.
you're having, you might have had historically 2 classes or however many going, and then last year it was only 1. So the number from from 2020, it appears to be justifiable for what the potential that is there.
Okay, so yeah, it looks like maybe a post-COVID marine
Right,
biology hangover.
exactly what I think Laura said, where it's possible, or somebody said that, hey, maybe they didn't want to, but historically in 2020, that's what it was.
Okay, I will actually withdraw the motion based on that.
Thank you, Frank. Are there other motions on the school budget? Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I have a question for administration first before I make a motion. And I don't think it's been discussed, but referencing reference number 1943 on the notes, and on the actual, there will be, notes is page 67, on the actual is page 61, reference number 1385. Is the Mountain View Middle School athletic student transportation, is that contractual or not?
It is not contractual, and so this was just. Yeah, you might as well take this one, because it's more of a school board thing.
So we have sports at the school, at the middle school. We don't have enough bus drivers to actually have routes. So if you're on the football team, if you're on the baseball team, any of our middle school sports, parents are doing all the driving. We would like to get those bus drivers to do just like they do at the high school, and transport our students for those sports. But we haven't been able to do it. That's why our actuals are so low for those, is because we haven't been able to find bus drivers to conduct those services. And we're hoping to.
And just ironically that you mentioned, so last night at the school board meeting, I informed the school board that, yes, we're getting a lot of complaints about this, and we partnered with the bus company, so we handed out flyers at the middle school and at the high school for our athletic director and our co-curricular folks to try to get our coaches to drive a bus because of this situation. It is a pain. There's a lot of parents who work a job, sometimes 2 jobs. They can't get their kids to these things. So the program that the bus company is sponsoring is to pay our staff to train while they're in training, and then obviously they would be paid to then drive the bus. They would be bus company employees, and then obviously they're also potentially a coach or a volunteer coach. We have a lot of volunteer coaches. So we're trying our very, very best to get drivers, but this is a major problem at Mountain View.
Okay. Jared, and then Brian.
Yeah, I would treat this almost like we have vacancies that we need to fill, and because we haven't been able to fill them, that's why it's so low on our actuals. That's my business kind of take on it. This is something that's needed. I think it's continued to be needed. It's just one of those things where we haven't been able to get the people to do it. And I imagine once we get the people to do it, this will go back up to where it needs to be so that middle school kids can go play basketball and bowling and everything else.
Brian?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I think I'm just wrestling with it because I know there's current state and there's future state. So I think I'd like to make a motion, and I'd like to make a motion to reduce that line item, which is 1385 from, well, down to 10,000, to reduce.
Okay, so to clarify, Brian's motion is reference line 1385 of the actuals budget, Fund 10, location 2042724, program 2511 relative to student transportation. Change it from proposed of 25,589 to 10,000. So that's a delta of $15,589. Is there a second? I will second. Go ahead. Allison, did you have something you'd like to say?
Yeah, is that transportation to games?
2 games.
Like
from
other
home,
schools
from games.
from,
And again, you know,
it's not getting them home after the games, it is getting them to the games and
and
home.
back to the,
And back to the
back to the
school.
school.
Okay, thank you.
And just to continue on, again, it's not just driving them there, but it's actually paying them to stay there.
Right, no, I just
And then
meant,
drive back.
generally, I was looking for what those buses were doing, gotcha.
Good, Peter.
Would these monies be used to entice drivers, like give bonuses, like you spoke about earlier, or you actually gave the bus driver people bonuses for coming to work?
No, so what,
We
so,
never did that.
Pardon me?
We never did that.
Well, that's what you said.
No. That might be what you said, but we never paid people to come to work as a bonus factor. We did something different. We didn't do what you said.
What did you do then, Jared?
I'm sorry, are we talking about this line, or? do you wanna give
We're
me
gonna
one
have a
first?
separate-
That's what I want to make sure, that those funds are allocated to what they're supposed to be and not to help find
So-
employees. How's that?
So as you can, I just want to clarify, so you can see in this specific line, 1385 on the actuals, Mountain View's athletic transportation, we have not spent that line. The monies that you do see on these lines, we have to pay the coaches to go to mileage, to go to these different schools, to go to the track meets, to go to the games, et cetera. But we are reserving that money, and the reason why it's in the budget is that we're hopeful that next year we do. Without money funds there, then we don't have then the funds are not there to take the kids. So that's kind of where we're at on that one.
So, just to clarify, order of operations, a priority from, let me ask the school board, but also the SAU. The priority is first to find drivers to staff all the routes, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then the second priority is to find staff to get students from the school to athletics. So let me ask, if there's vacancies in the bus routes and the bus routes are short, wouldn't the priority be to pay them and then athletics?
There are, the challenge with transportation is that there are different subsets of drivers, okay? When most people who drive a school bus, they are working, in the morning, and then there's a lull, and then they do the afternoon. These folks who do the athletics or co-curriculars, these folks are totally different. They're almost like the night shift, right? Because they're taking the kids on a Friday, they're picking them up at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, they're going to Portsmouth for, say, a football game or a field hockey game, and they're not getting back till 10:15, 10:30 at night, and there are two different types of people that do that. We only have like 2 or 3 people in Goffstown who are willing to even do these, these types of routes. Okay, those, I'm saying, like, now, when I'm talking about the long drive out to the seacoast type of thing. But more often than not, you might have like a middle school one where, okay, they're gonna pick them up at 3 or 4 o'clock, and then they're gonna go to the game, and then they're gonna be back by 6:30. That's another group that seemed a little bit more willing. So each one, you have parents, or whether it be a mom or a dad who has a flexible schedule, their kids are in school, their own kids are on the bus, etc. Those are one subset, and then there's others who they may be able to do the daytime job, but they can't do the after-school co-curricular job, and that's where we have the problems. We don't have that many that are willing to do it. So if there's anybody out there in TV land, you're willing to drive a school bus, you do get paid for the training, and you're going to get paid somewhere around $23 to $25 an hour to drive a bus. So,
Okay. Lauren?
Did you want the job? No, I'm not offering myself for the
you
job.
are. I'll get you your application.
So it's possible that this money could go to coaches, assistant coaches, to do the training, to drive the bus
We don't
in
have
the place of.
Yeah. So what STA, the bus company, they're going to pay our coaches, teachers, et cetera, during the training, and then they're going to pay them when they're fully a bus driver. We're out of that. We're just trying to help facilitate. We're trying to let our coaches know that, I know that your parents are complaining about it. Like, can you help this problem? So if you are already going on a bus, would you be willing to drive that bus?
So
and
how does
perhaps
that
make
work?
some extra money?
How does that, so that does work into this budget line, though?
This particular budget line, we're paying the bus company an amount of money to take our kids from a school to an athletic competition. So that's what we're paying the bus company. I'm not paying a coach, we're paying a bus company.
Okay,
So
you
what is this
mentioned
line?
coaches and assistant coaches, and that's where I got confused.
Right. I only mentioned it in the sense that we're so desperate, right? That we're trying to facilitate the bus company using our people to say, hey, if you're already gonna go out there, maybe you wanna work for the bus company to ease the burden on being on the bus driver shortage. That's all we're doing. We're just passing out flyers.
Okay.
Okay. Lauren?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I look at the student transportation as an equity issue. There are a lot of students at middle school that can't play sports if their parents aren't out at work by 3:10. So to reduce this line, we're already having a hard time getting bus drivers at those current rates. We're running, 7 buses down, 9 buses down as it is. I appreciate the school board trying to get sports back sport transportation back for the middle school, but I really think that I just want to comment that I think this is an equity issue, because there are kids that are not going to be able to play sports and are not playing sports at the middle school because their parents or guardians are working long hours. So that's a hard cut. Any time we're taking money away from the most vulnerable, that's a tough one.
Okay. Any other comments? Do you have any?
No, but,
There were a couple hands up over here.
no, but thank you.
Go
I'll
ahead.
just echo what Lauren said.
Okay.
It's an equity issue.
Great, so are we ready to vote on this motion? Okay, all those in favor of this cut, 15,589 reduction in the proposed budget, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Samantha Kearns, Richard Fletcher, Lauren Dukas, Jared Talbot, Melanie Ricker-Hebert, Laura Stevens, Olivia Welcher et al., Peter Derjantis, Richard Manzo, and Allison DeCesare vote in the negative. Frank, how do you vote?
I abstained.
Frank abstains. Okay. So motion fails. Any other motions? Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I motion to strike all dues and fees line items district-wide, account code 811, except for critical accreditations. So I didn't mention reference lines because there's a whole bunch of them. I want to do it district-wide because, again, well, that's my motion.
Okay, so the motion is to cut any associations
To
or
strike all
memberships
dues and fees
minus any associations that are required for school accreditation?
Correct.
Okay. Is there a second on that?
Point of order.
Go ahead.
There's no lines, we don't even have a function code.
The
So
function code was 811, right?
The
Account
account
code-
code is 811.
811.
Yeah, 811.
Okay, but if we're making a motion, I think we need to have some lines. What are the figures you're looking at?
Reference line 777, 1411, 2081, 2182, 2234,
So
2488.
we're gonna have to go
2504.
slower, but if you wanna cut those and you want us to look at them, we're gonna need to look at all of
Okay,
them.
let's start with.
Well,
That's my,
so-
I'm
we
sorry,
need a
sir.
second.
I'm sorry, that was my point of order,
Yeah,
Mr.
no,
Chair, I
and-
apologize.
And it's,
I'm asking.
and to clarify, I think that we could go motion by motion, but if the vote's gonna be the same for all of these, and it might not, I don't know, I'm just throwing it out there, it might not pass, why waste our time and go motion by motion?
Right, I
It's
just-
not necessarily our job as a committee to go to exact numbers. If we make a motion and it's approved, it's up to Scott to kind of punch the numbers and get us back with a final
And I
figure.
can tell you that I do not think that if, again, no disrespect to the motion.
Could
I don't think I
somebody
could do
second
that.
this for
I'll
discussion?
second it, yep.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
So, I'm sorry.
Scott.
I don't think that I could do that in real time for you. There's too
Yeah.
many, there's a lot of lines. And then the other thing is that there's, you'd almost have to go through it line by line, because some of them are school accreditation, some of them are, as was explained, I think, in the presentations, and I don't know if everybody was here, but, there are some where we're paying dues to a New Hampshire School Principals Association where, you're getting professional development, you're getting a whole lot of good benefit, out of that, which helps the teachers, helps the students. And, it's challenging. But again, if I just could not possibly do that
So-
in real time.
Okay.
There's a lot of things I can do,
yeah.
that one would take me like an hour probably to make sure I got the numbers right.
I understand, so I'm gonna allow the motion.
Yep, that's
knowing
fine.
that,
Might have to
it
come back another,
probably-
right.
if we might have to, but I'm surmising that it might not
Okay.
pass, so. All right, would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, going through all the reference lines as part of that district-wide account code of 811, again, outside of the critical accreditations for curriculum review and stuff like that, I think a lot of the fees and dues can be self and student funding. So such as like fees for support field trips, student learning experiences, these are things that I think the students can be self-funded. Shouldn't be on the taxpayers.
Okay, more discussion. I'm a little confused. I think the motion was the associations we're a
Yeah.
part of, not the, right? Like the.
That's what I was gonna
School
ask.
administrative professional association or
That's two
something.
different things.
So what's the question?
So are you, so I understand you right, are we referring to associations that we're a part of, or are we talking about student, like, field trips and things like that? Because I think those are two
So
different.
under that district-wide account code, under dues and fees, they list out accreditation, they list out field trips, they list out student learning experiences as fees.
Can we cover that?
So I'm saying, take out, strike all of the fees and dues that are tied to that, except for accreditations that we're expected to keep based upon curriculum and other other things.
Okay. Melanie, I saw your hand, and then we'll go around. Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, could we get a list of all of the dues and fees that are associated with that code before we consider
It's in your notes.
some of the-
So if you look at all the 811 functions, I will tell you that they range from the New Hampshire School Boards Association dues and fees, which supports the school district with their model policies, free legal opinions, et cetera. That's one. You might have the New Hampshire School Principals Association for particular principals in different schools. That might be another. You might have dues and fees to go on a field trip. You might have dues and fees that are attributed to Mountain View or accreditation, or Goffstown High School accreditation, which again was excluded from this motion, but they're all lumped together in that 811. So there's a lot.
So I'm looking,
there's a lot in there, you know? There's probably, you're looking at, you're probably looking at 25 to 30 different lines that you'd have to go through.
Thank you.
And so why, and they're all commingled. You know, that's why I'm saying this is not an easy lift for me, you know?
So I'm saying, I'm entertaining this as one motion in order to save time, but I'm happy for the committee if you'd like to go line by line by line by line, or if we can vote as a membership by and large. Go ahead, Laura.
So because a motion was made and it was seconded, can someone motion to go line by line, or do we have to like finish what we started? So, because that doesn't make sense to me.
I mean, we're allowed to withdraw the motion if you want to go.
But
line
I can't
by
withdraw
line.
someone else's motion.
No,
I can amend my motion if the budget committee wants to go line by line.
I would
appreciate
appreciate
I'm just
that.
trying to save some
I
time,
hear
that's
you.
all. That's the only reason I'm doing it.
Yeah, no, I don't think time is the reason to.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
All right.
So I'll amend my motion to strike dues and fee lines, and we'll start with reference line 777.
This is in the notes for the actual.
That's on notes, and on the actuals, it would be,
Did we get a second on his amendment?
So this is the Bartlett admin dues and fees line, New Hampshire Association
We on
of School
actuals?
Principals. This is, I'm just reading what it is. So it's the New Hampshire Association of School Principals and National Association for School Principals.
What was the, which one?
I'm looking at the notes line
notes.
777.
What's the actual?
For Brian's getting that right now.
well, actuals is page 14, reference number 305.
Thank you. I think we just say, I think notes is helpful in this situation.
Yeah, this is
It says
where
what the
it breaks out.
I feel like we need to look at the actuals.
Yes,
If
we're
we
looking
wanna
at
look
both
the
of them.
actuals.
Yep, totally.
Just a clarification, so this is page 14 of the actuals, line 305? Is that?
Yes.
I do not see anything under default or proposed for this line. This is currently 0. Am I the only one?
Can you give me the
seeing that?
reference line?
I see
No,
that.
you're correct.
See
That's
it?
what I say.
Page 14,
Reference line, just, I'm just,
That's the
305.
thank you, sir.
I think that's the wrong reference.
Wrong location. Hold on.
Yeah, that's
on
the district.
Bartlett.
That's the district.
If you're doing Bartlett, it would be a
102.
101.
101.
101 location, so.
All right.
Is that 101, 2410, 811?
Yep.
So this is line 454 on page 20 of the actuals, which again is zeros, so it might be something somewhere else.
It wouldn't be 1410. It would
So-
be 2410.
2410.
It would be 2410, so.
I have your,
you-
I have the first dues and fees lines on the actuals.
So, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
It would be
Go ahead, Scott.
reference line 573 on the actual. on the
Okay,
actual.
so line
Yes.
573, this is a motion to strike $1,195 out of the proposed to make it 0.
Where are we
Correct
at
me if-
now?
I'm on line 573 of the actuals page.
Page 25.
Yep, page
I
25.
thought
dues
we
and
were
fees.
just doing page 15.
Am I correct, Brian?
Yes.
Okay, so and to clarify, Scott, that's the National Association of School Principals
Right.
and
And
New Hampshire Association of
yeah.
School Principals for Bartlett
Yeah,
only.
right, and it's 1.5 administrators.
It's 1.5 administrators, so if this passes, we'd have to make the motion for Maple Ave as well.
No.
right, 'cause
No,
it's-
It would be Glen Lake. is
Glen
the-
Lake, got it, okay. Laura, go ahead.
I think once we start taking things away from our professionals, especially when it's, I don't know what the total of all the lines are, but this line is a little over $1,000. We want to value our teachers. We have trouble getting them. We want to keep them. We already pay in the low end. We spend on the low end of the state per student. I would hate to, even knowing the taxpayers are looking for relief, I would hate to say we found that by telling our principals they can't be a part of their professional organization on the dime of the school.
Okay. Melanie and then Olivia.
I think I was sitting right here, well, probably down there, when I heard Mr. Talbot go over all the benefits that they receive from these organizations, and the money that it saves us because those organizations provide the same training that they would have to do anyway at a much lower cost. So there's a benefit to being involved that even is outside of the benefit of having them have those skills to teach our children in Goffstown schools. So there's benefit on both sides, and I see no reason to take any of these lines away for the same reason. So I won't repeat it every time we go through the next line.
So
Thank you.
That was why I was trying to save time. If everybody was going to vote consistently across every one of them, you know what I mean? But we can go ahead, Laura. You all set? Olivia?
No, I understand what you're saying in that regard, but in case there was the outlier
Yeah.
of something, I just wanted to,
No problem. Olivia, go ahead.
I mean, my concern, kind of piggybacking off of Melanie's, is the lack of support that it shows to administrators and staff. They're required to have continuing education as it is. They need to maintain accreditation, they need to maintain certain standards. We already struggle with retaining and hiring new. I don't think it's helpful to leave them less supported, and I don't see a benefit to this or to cutting dues and fees for students to be less supported.
Okay. Scott?
I actually welcome a question like this, and I welcome a motion like this because it allows someone like myself to explain the benefits. And yes, you see dues and fees. I belong to a couple of different organizations which have notified me of grant opportunities, written the grant, and in a place like New Boston, got an $80,000 grant for lighting, okay, or other grants. We are, so that's one. I learn a lot from being with my peers on a monthly basis at meetings, whether they be team meetings or whether physically in person, and it keeps the district out of hot water, okay? Lastly, when you have dues, and I'm gonna, this is weird because I used to be on the town side as an elected official, so I got used to the New Hampshire Municipal Association. Phenomenal organization, it's counter, some may not agree, but in terms of resources, really good. Last night, we were talking about, there was a topic about petition warrant articles, and I was able to quickly go in, get the answer to questions and give it to the school board. Other than that, I would have spent $250 an hour talking to our attorney to write a legal opinion, which this association already did for every town and municipality. So there are tremendous benefits, and I think what we pay for these, we get back like tenfold in terms of making sure that we comply with existing laws, free legal opinions, free policy development, the things that we really want. So, I like to think that we should brag about what we do on the town and school side, but we do it because we're getting, this great expert advice from these entities that are doing it in a collaborative effort, for hundreds of other school districts and towns. So it's a shared resource, and they're phenomenal. Same thing applies to these national organizations where, if we have a whole host of different issues in the schools, and they give you help in terms of how to solve these problems or different ways of doing things and professional development. It's amazing, this set of resources. So I'm glad the question was asked, because I think it highlights how important they are.
Lauren, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, but
No, go ahead.
I've sort of lost track of, we're discussing.
We're talking specifically about
About
reference line 7.
But that's kind of where I'm sorry,
777.
I'm sorry,
777.
Mr. Chair, I'm a little confused on where we've decided to go to the
There's a
amendment.
motion
It's
and a
been
sec-
seconded, correct?
Yep, there's a motion and a second on Bartlett.
Yeah.
Reference line 573 with the
Right.
actuals.
Yep,
Okay, and that's all that we're
We are
questioning
looking
and commenting
specifically
on.
at that line.
right.
I got you.
Any other discussion on this line? Brian?
Well, just a clarification, when it says dues, it's not considered in continuing education. It's just dues to the association you're being a part of. So
Yes,
it's
but
not
the due-
defined as
But the
continuing education.
dues, depending upon the particular association that you belong to, some of these organizations give you free professional development. Some will then charge you a fee. So I belong to an association where a lot of the training is part of, we bring in, they're volunteers, and we bring in, there are others where you have to spend $200 for the day to go and get professional development. So that will be on a separate line. But this is just the, like I said, some of them, it's part of your dues, and then others, it's outside of your dues, and then it's a different line, Brian, where it would be like professional development, where you would pay extra for like a day or a 2-day seminar type of thing.
Okay.
Okay. All right, are we ready to vote on this specific line? Jerry?
Yeah, I'm just gonna say it quickly. Melanie already hit on it. I know that we've talked about this at our other meetings. These are so critical, mission critical for getting our stuff done. So hopefully, I'll be voting no on this. Hopefully it fails.
Okay. All right, all those in favor of Brian's motion to strike line on the actuals page, 573 reference line, dues and fees relative to administrative continuing membership of New Hampshire Association of School Principals and National Association of School Principals, $1,195. Please raise your hand now if you are in favor. Okay, any opposed? Samantha Kearns, Richard Fletcher, Lauren Dukas, Jared Talbot, Frank Hobbs, Melanie Renfrew-Keeper, Laura Stevens, Olivia Welcher et al., Peter Georgantis, Richard Manzo, Allison DeCesare vote in the negative. Any abstentions? Okay, so Brian, knowing that that vote was so lopsided, would you like to continue on all of these, or?
Well, there's a lot, I don't know that falls into the district-wide, that's where we need Scott to help, but let me, can I have one, yep, 1 second? Yeah.
Lauren?
Mr. Chair, thank you. A very down and dirty count here. Looks like we might be talking about $85,000 to $100,000. That's, I just wanted to clarify, is that the figure that you have, Mr. Mazur, or have you not actually tallied every one of these?
No, that's approximate, yeah.
Could you give me the, may I ask, may I follow up? I'm
He
curious.
can answer it if he wants.
Okay, what is the total line cut that you're talking about here? The bottom line figure, what's your math?
Well, that's why I have to rely on staff, meaning Scott, because he was mentioning the whole district line encompasses like 30 reference lines.
Right.
I only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And so I can't give you the total number because,
But just like going through here, all the 811 codes, barring what you said as required for accreditation, is like $85,000.
It's
Is that
probably
about
probably
what
north
you're?
of that,
Yeah,
because-
that's, like I said, very quick.
85,702.
85,702.
So we're
Thank you.
talking, yeah, so we can go line by line if you, or on the
well, I
85,702.
was trying
Go
to
ahead.
get to another section, hold on.
Yep.
So just to assist you a little bit, I have reference line hypothetically 243 on your notes, I'm sorry, on your actuals.
Okay.
And that should be your school board, your New Hampshire School Board Association, 6150. There are, let's see, we did the Bartlett one. There's another dues and fees on line 575. And that's, that's Bartlett and, so if you could just, but to go through all these, I don't know, like, where you're, like,
No, and
you're
I'm-
going
I-
through them page by page, so.
I understand, I want to give every member of the committee their priority and allow them to do whatever they'd like to do. So if you'd like to continue.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, so like, going back to my initial motion, but I'll make a motion to strike reference number 2081 on notes. And then I have to go back to actuals. It's on page 63, I believe it's 1445.
Yep, 1445.
So that's my motion to strike that line item.
Okay, so that's the school, that's the, what association is that, Scott?
These are multiple. So, and this is where I felt it would be a really hard lift, because this one includes, so it's the high school, New Hampshire Music Educators Association, again, more teacher-related. Then it's art, fees to participate in the Scholastic Art Awards, that directly affects students. New Hampshire Science and Engineering Expo, directly affects students. Moodle Association membership, that's $100, and that's really for us IT, and we get just collaborative stuff out of that. And then the last one is the All-State Music Participation, 15 students. So these are to allow our students who, in the performing arts, who play a musical instrument, and they're very, very good at what they do, to go to an all-state music festival. So in this particular one, this is why it's so, they're all dues and fees, but yet it's not like, oh, this is just like the Principals Association. No, you can see most of these impact students directly.
Do you have a motion on this line, Brian?
Yeah, I made my motion. I wasn't sure there's a
Okay, the
second.
motion, you're striking the entire line.
Yes.
Okay, $5,585. From line 1445, is there a second? Out of courtesy of Brian, I'll second it. Any discussion on this?
I'd like Brian to speak further to it.
Yep, go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, and it does go back to my original argument where and again, I'm looking back to when I went to high school, when a particular student wants to go on a field trip or something, it's usually parent and student funded. It's not on the school, meaning on the taxpayer. So that's where my argument comes from. It's like, most of these impact the students, which I understand, but again, my constituents believe it should be from the student's perspective to be self-funded, not on the taxpayers.
Okay. Melanie?
If I can fall back on what Lauren said earlier, this particular line would be an equity issue. It would be telling some students that they can go if their parents can afford it, and other students they cannot. And for that reason, I will vote against any one of these that come up that would be inequitable to the students of our schools.
Thank you, Melanie. Laura?
I agree 100% with Melanie, and I also want to add that I also believe that our constituents want to live in a town that fosters the growth of our children in ways more than just the school day. These extracurriculars are really important. They're really important for further ed. They're really important for self-esteem. They're really important to teach kids what they can potentially do, and that they don't always get that in the classroom. And there's still a lot of it the parents do pay for. A lot of these things don't have transportation, or they have transportation one way, but the student has to find transportation the way home. So the taxpayer isn't covering all of it, but they are supporting the community through these activities for our kids.
Olivia?
Some constituents might support not paying for kids to be involved in extracurricular, but I think there's a lot that do, and I think there's a lot that wouldn't be able to offer these opportunities to their children without the assistance for programs like this. I also don't think it's effective to think about how it was when we went to school per se, because a lot has been learned about the way kids and teachers learn and grow in the past X amount of years. I don't think that's a fact-based argument at all.
Okay, thank you, Olivia. I'm gonna go Peter and then Brian.
I'm not sure whether this came up that we didn't do this years ago, because I went to this school in the 60s, and we didn't have to pay any fees. We went to band camps, we went to acting competitions, and there was no charge. It was, we just went and did it. And my parents didn't have to pay anything. The school covered it, so that was part of the deal. So, and that was in the 60s, so maybe Brian's older than me. I don't know.
I feel like it.
Brian, go ahead. And then
Yeah,
Richard
this
Manzo.
is a follow-up, and just for the record, I'm not dismissing that this is not well worth, kids to go out and get extracurricular activity and to learn, to grow, and I respect the equity question, but I think we have to be creative in how we potentially fund this, because to do a carte blanche to the community and taxpayers, okay, we want to fund this because we need to fund it, I think you're stealing that, I guess, that position or that capability of a voter. So I think we have to be creative. Maybe we could reduce the line for those students that need the actual assistance or funding. But again, I think we should be cautious in regards to how we spend our community's money when it comes to dues and fees. I think that most parents and kids actually can self-fund. They can do fundraisers and they can actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Richard Manzo.
Yeah, the last time that I attended this school was actually in 2017, so that's fairly recently. And I'll say that it's kind of unfortunate that my experience was actually that students did have to pay. So that's something that's changed since the time that Peter attended this school. And, call it an equity issue, call it, whatever you want. I don't think that it's the position of the majority of our taxpayers that only their kids should have what they can afford.
Thank you, Richard. Who hasn't spoken on this? Samantha and Frank.
Playing football.
Thank you.
Right?
In a similar stance to what Richard was saying, I could be 100% wrong in this, but I know that when I was in school, I'm sure, and I went to a different school, the school still had to pay for students to join All-State and Tri-M, and then in addition, students paid to go to that festival as well. The amount that they paid was much smaller, but it's like you had to pay to get the invitation to go, and then you still had to pay to go. So if you're asking the students to pay, you're going to be increasing the amount that they pay exponentially. And my heart is always in the arts, it is. Students, we have plenty of sports and athletics, and students can go to other schools and do those athletics, but to go to any art, musical, theater festival, there needs to be an organizing, governing body, and that is these dues and fees.
Thank you, Sam.
And then I have one last thing, because I know Lauren was asking for the number. The total number of all the dues and fees is $69,436.
Scott said it was $85,702.
Oh, that's what I added up to. But if he's got a control F, you'll trust him.
30 reference
I'm
lines.
going to go around. Scott, it's around.
He's probably got a control F.
85,702.
Perfect. Frank, did you have something to say?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that I appreciate all the points in the discussion on this, and the real question is, should this be on the taxpayers' back? This one's a tough one for me, because everything on there is a benefit. Everything on there is great. When I went to school, I paid for a lot of things out of pocket. As far as the equity argument, we paid for a lot of things out of, whether it was fundraisers, whether it was my parents paying for it. And I think the equity argument is a little overblown when somebody doesn't want to pay $100 for an event and they're cruising around with a $1,200 cell phone. It's a little disingenuous. Should this be on the taxpayers? In my opinion, the real question. So I'm not even sure how I'm going to vote on it. So those are just my thoughts on it. And we paid for a lot of things growing up. No, I cannot remember some student not doing something or going to something because of cost.
Okay, I'm going to go Melanie and back down the line. Lauren, have you spoken on this yet?
I haven't.
Okay, I'm gonna go Lauren and then Melanie down the line. Sorry, Melanie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to ask a brief clarification, if I may. I know it's all over the place, but these particular ones, these particular fees, Scott, some of these are, if we don't pay them, the students wouldn't even have the opportunity to pay their way to go, right? Some of these we actually have to pay to say, hey, we'd like to Sam's point, we'd like to send our kids here, correct?
Yes, that's part of it. Yeah, not all.
Not all,
Some.
but this particular line that we're on right now.
Yeah, so if it's All-State Music Festival,
They're not going.
if someone doesn't pay the fee, then you're not going. So if the school doesn't pay the fee, and then it would fall upon a parent or someone to pay the fee to go.
But I'm not talking about a per-student fee, I'm talking about, like, to have access for Goffstown.
Yes, sometimes, yes, so.
So this would not
To
only
give you
be
a great
doing-
example, we pay fees due to the New Hampshire Interscholastic Athletic Association, right? And you pay based upon the number of sports. And that is something that every school has to do, and you must pay that for students to participate in, okay? So that would be in your 1420 function.
So
I'm sorry, did I answer your question or no?
You're confusing me. You
So-
said 1420. My clarifying point here was would this remove Goffstown visibility from a lot of things? Because we wouldn't even be able to give our students the opportunity to say, hey, individual students pay to attend.
It depends. So there, as I mentioned before, the 811 dues and fees incorporates 4 or 5 different subcategories. As we mentioned before, dues and fees for professional organization for teachers, principals, et cetera, okay? It also is school board and also our athletic department. And in those situations, you're getting tremendous benefit, from that. In the case of New Hampshire sports, right, you have to pay the fee to participate. And if you don't pay the fee, nobody's playing in any sports, period, okay? Then you have individual things where we have in certain instances, like in New Hampshire arts, et cetera, where you're paying a fee for the student to be involved in that program. But one thing that I think really we lose track of, I don't know about you, but I get hit up all the time for wreaths and cards and raffles, et cetera. So the notion that the school district is paying for all this stuff is not accurate, okay? There are many, many fundraisers that help support for a lot of things that many school districts do pay for. So Goffstown does not pay a ton towards all these things. And as a matter of fact, we have booster clubs, many of them here at the high school, who raise a tremendous amount of money to help support our students and our kids who are in either performing arts or athletics. PTAs that do or PTOs that do all those types of things. So it's everywhere, so there's a lot that gets supported by the community and parents, especially, who shell out money for their kids to participate.
Thank you, Scott. Everybody has a chance to speak on this. Go ahead, Jared.
Move to end debate.
All right, so you're moving the question. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
All right.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. All right, so the question is on reference line of the actuals, 243. Fund 10, 2311, account 811, dues and fees. The motion is to cut it from 6,150 to 0. All those in favor of that motion, please raise your hand. And all those opposed? Okay, so for expediency for the minute taker, everybody was opposed except for Brian Mazur, who was in favor of it. That okay? Okay. Just to save a little bit of time, skirting the rules a little bit.
Can you give me the line one more time?
Yep, it was line, reference line 243. Okay. Do you have,
Yeah.
do you want to
Thank
keep
you, Mr.
going?
Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and I don't have a dues and fees, so we're going to pass over that one. So I have a motion to reduce reference line 2482. That's on your notes. On the actual, it would be, let's see here, page 74, reference line 1684. sorry, 1694, sorry.
Okay, so that's
So- student agendas at the high school? Yeah, it's admin, high school printing and binding. My motion is to reduce reference line, well, 2482 or,
20, say that again, 20?
well,
The actual
notes.
line.
Actual line is 1694 to 3,000.
Okay, so motion by Brian to reduce reference line 1694 relative to printing and binding and student agendas at the high school from 6,500 to 3,000. Is there a second for that?
Second.
Seconded by Sam Kearns. So Brian, would you like to go, and then I'll let Jared go?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's quite simple. I think this is based upon not providing an agenda for every single student. It should be based upon student request. So I think we can save on financial and physical waste by doing it by student request.
Okay. Thank you, Brian. Scott, do you have the actuals for, is the 2023 actuals 6,500? I know it says it, but I guess I'm wondering.
This is the district line.
We didn't, I know we cut the line before, the school district did.
Yeah.
Because not every
Yeah.
student was using it.
Yeah, hold tight a second.
Okay, yeah.
I hit the
I'm gonna let
cells.
Jared go. Go
Well,
ahead, Jared.
while he's looking that up, so we did make a conscious effort to not provide the booklet to all students, but we felt it was important to actually have new students, so those incoming freshmen, some sophomores, et cetera, et cetera. So we wanted to recognize that, you know, if you're a senior, you probably know everything that's going on. Your parents probably know everything going on. They don't need the actual student hand guide. But this is so that they actually had a printed document to give to the kids to read, also to give to the parents. So we did recognize that we wanted to cut down paper and cut down costs, but we still feel it's very important that we immerse as many ways we can with communication, incoming freshmen and incoming students with what the roles and responsibilities they have are.
Thank you, Jared. So, Lauren, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a clarifying and then maybe a follow-up question. Student agendas, right?
This is the student agenda book specifically for high school. So
Yeah, I'm sorry.
that, it's right outside. I can go
No,
grab it,
I
but
mean, I
it's a
have a
little
high
like-
school student, Mr. Chair,
Oh,
but that's,
okay.
I wanted to make sure this is the agenda, this is their planner. This is how they keep track of their blocks, and this is how, and it does have very important information in the beginning. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't just like a policy handbook, but we're talking about the planners where they record
like
all their
homework assignments.
classwork. Gotcha.
So Scott, can you, maybe this would be helpful for the committee, can you tell me how many planners, like the cost per planner, do you know?
No.
Okay. Well, I get it.
There's a lot I know, but I don't know that one. Yeah.
All right, so,
I mean, I know we order them in advance, and it's, I know one thing, they're not on demand. So we have to order, and as Jared said, we went from giving every single student one of these to now only doing it for the 9th and 10th graders.
okay.
So that's, I know we already took that action last year or the year before.
Okay.
That was a way to save money, so.
Lauren, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So that
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'll go with Melanie after if you had something.
Oh, no, I didn't.
The
Thank you.
2020 actual that you used to spend $10,000 on it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, so, okay, I just wanted to make sure I was on the right line. And now it's budgeted to
10,129.
65. Yep.
Yes, yeah, we've made those changes, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so the motion is a $3,500 delta from 6,500 to 3,000, so that's a further reduction, $3,500. So is there any discussion on this? All right, seeing none, I'm gonna call for a question. All those in favor of this reduction, please raise your hand. All those opposed? Samantha Kearns, Richard Fletcher, Lauren Dukas, Jared Talbot, Melanie Renfrew-Hebert, Laura Stevens, Olivia Welch-Erdahl, Peter Georgantis, Richard Manzo, and Allison DeCesare in the negative, so the motion fails. Any other motions? Sam, did you have your hand up?
No, I was
You were stretching.
just stretching out.
It's been a little while. Okay, so, Scott, do you have a number with our, I believe we made 2 changes?
I do? Yeah.
Okay. Can you give that to Jared? Because I assume Jared would like to make a motion.
I'll make a motion to move to public hearing the following number for the school board.
A revised total appropriation of $55,709,910.
One more time, please.
$55,709,910.
No change. Okay.
Second.
Okay, so motion by Jared to move this to public hearing in the amount of $55,709,910, seconded by Peter Georgantis. Is there discussion on this budget? School side budget.
Can I just make a comment?
Yep, go ahead, Deborah.
I just want to see the school board, all going back to the amount of hours they put in. I think it's really telling that we were down to sort of fees and planners when it comes to items we could cut. I looked through this multiple times, and I think just you guys did a great job, and I know it happens at the SAU level first. Trying to really keep this reasonable considering the amount of students we have. This is a tough one because of course we all want lower taxes, whether we have kids in school or not. But this is just a pretty tight budget as it was brought to us, I thought.
Okay, and to put this in perspective, this isn't the last time we can have a bite at it. If
No,
we
of
hear
course.
there's hundreds of people at the public hearing saying we need to reduce this budget, we can also do that after the public hearing.
Yep.
Any other comments on the motion? Go ahead, Melanie.
I would kind of mirror what Laura said, but I'd add to it that I really feel a sense of disappointment that with this entire budget, the things that were brought up were things that directly impact students and our professional development. I think if I could have put in an envelope, a slip of paper after the last few meetings and said, what will we be talking about cutting, it would have said professional development. It was crystal clear in the conversations we had. But I was surprised by field trips and sports and student activities and student dues, because the students are the reason that we're here. Excuse me. I'm a little verklempt, but also it's a little dry in here. I really have concerns about us as a board being able to look at other people's lived experiences. I heard some very disappointing things about, oh, parents can just pay for it. And let me reassure anybody on this board, if parents could pay for these things for all of their students, all of their children, they would. It's just like school lunches. If they could pay for them, they would. This isn't a matter of making a choice for a cell phone over letting your student have an experience. This is a choice of not having a choice.
Okay.
And I'm really disappointed in that thread of the conversation.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm going to just make sure that we're clear that every member has the right to say what they'd like to say, and that everybody's experiences are different. Everybody's duly elected member other than Peter and Jared of this board and Richard. So any other comments on this motion? All right, all those in favor of moving this budget to public hearing, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, we're unanimous. So we'll talk about the school budget on January 9th. Okay?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Jared to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Melanie. All those in favor? Please raise your hand. All those opposed?
I'm sorry, man. I thought you were
All right,
anyone else.
abstentions were unanimous. Go ahead. All set. Thank you, GTV.